All right. Hey, everybody. It is your boy, Phoenix, Coffin-Williams, coming to you from Holistic Wellness and Recovery. And I'm here with Courtney, my co-worker, co-therapist. And we just came to give a little chat or a little discussion about who we are, what we're kind of into, what we like about what we do, just so that you can get to know us a little bit better, get a feel for our different kind of energies. And you can start to formulate a little plan about what you might be walking into when you come to get some counseling or therapy or coaching from us. So with that being said, Courtney, do you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Courtney Barber, and I think when you start counseling or coaching, initiating that relationship can be a little bit awkward because you're like the intent is to open up and tell your deepest, darkest secrets to a complete stranger. So I think it takes some time for things to kind of become comfortable, but that rapport and that sense of connection, we know as clinicians, is what really makes therapy work. So it's really important that you feel kind of comfortable with that person. So I think our idea was just to do a little bit of like kind of fun Q&A so that we become human beings who you've seen our faces. And then if you're interested or want to recommend us or just know more about us, it's a little bit easier to have an idea who you're talking to.
Yes. Excellent. All right. So do you want to ask the first question or do you want me to ask the first question?
I'll ask. So the first question is very timely. Do you love working from home or would you rather be in the office, or is there like a good balance between the two? I know this applies to a lot of people, not just therapists right now.
Yeah, so right now in particular, I have to say that working from home is a lot more convenient for me than having an office. With that being said, I do have an office. I just don't have to go there so frequently because I'm only doing virtual appointments. But I will say that I
Right.
enjoy going to the office. I enjoy going on site to different places to do my work. But right now, working from home is the most convenient and helpful for me.
Mm-hmm.
What
Mm-hmm.
about for you?
I much agree. I mean, I think, I'm a parent, so it's been really convenient to work from home and have like all of my life kind of more accessible at once, although that presents special challenges as well. I have like a cat that likes to try to like break into the room and like meow during therapy and just, things that we never had to deal with before. Um, I also have office space that I use one day a week. Some people really just like that one-on-one. So I like working from home, but I think I like a little bit of both. Sometimes I miss, sitting with someone in person. So that, those in-person sessions are kind of reminds me like how I got started and what the clinical relationship was like before. And so I think it's nice to have a little bit of that sprinkled in, but working from home is definitely a blessing.
Understood. Agreed. All right. So, my question for you is if you could time travel, what period of time would you visit?
Mm. That's a really tough question, but I think for me, like, I honestly have always thought since I was a little girl, it would be so cool to go back in time and be like a fly on the wall and just like see your, I don't know, 10 times great grandparents or something. Like, so that would probably put me back in Italy. But, although like on my mom's side, there's some ancestry in, the US and France and different places. So, I'm not sure geographically, but I can say I would definitely pick an historical setting to visit, like one of my ancestresses, and just to see what she was doing back then.
Love it. Love it. And of course, I love all of the acknowledgement to the ancestors. I'm so here for it. For me, if I could time travel, I would certainly go future. Right ahead.
Ooh.
I would not waste a single moment with something that is already written in a history book or that has
Mhm.
already been like beaten to death in discussion or interpretation or excerpt or whatever. I want to go future. That's where I'm
Ah,
going.
forgot that was an option. I can go forward.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
I'm going forward about 100
How
years.
far?
Just 100 years.
Okay, 100 years. Really? Okay. After that, who knows what you'll see if you go
That
too
part.
far.
That part.
Okay. Yes. Totally unrelated, but I loved Back to the Future when I was like a little kid. Just like, man, I love that movie. Um, so I had the questions in front of me too. And I think the next one is really a good one. What's your one tip for combating distractions when working from home? And again, that applies to a lot of people right now.
Hmm. I
Sometimes
would
I'm like
say,
from home and I'm counseling a client who's at home and like there's just all these weird things happening. Like, at the height of the pandemic, it's like, they're apologizing, I'm apologizing, like people are coming to the door for mail, their kids, their animals. It's like just crazy.
mhm. So for the
So
internal distractions, the ones that are from me, I've learned that setting
mhm.
bells or timers is helpful. And also making sure that I absolutely take a 15-minute break, a 30-minute break, another 15-minute break. Also, like I do work from home, I'm my own boss, so I'm definitely making sure that in the middle of the day I get an exercise or a workout in, as well as a meal.
Mhm.
That really helps keep me like focused and able to like maintain a good flow um, for the day when I am at home and I don't have like any traveling or anything to do.
Which is interesting because you say it out loud and it sounds so obvious, but it's really easy to not, because when we're going into a clinical setting, like you prepare, you like pack your lunch, you have like that structure, and then when you're working for yourself, it's really easy to not stop. So I like that you are intentional about it.
Mm.
Um, because it's easy to be like, wow, what time is it? What's happening? And like, that the food and things are there and you have access. So it's really easy to not take care of yourself, I think.
Yep. But then who am I gonna be
Um,
mad at? I'm gonna be like, what, my boss didn't let me take a break today?
right, right. Your own fault. It's all your own fault. Yeah, it's almost, I don't know, when they kind of like when they talk about unschooling, it's like, you have that structure set up for you. And it's kind of interesting to see like, well, what will I do on my own
Mhm.
if I'm in charge of it? Um, so for me, I think definitely mindfulness a piece. Like there's so many things that could distract me, like at home and like projects or just different things. I do some writing and I have other streams of income and we have animals. And I think just trying to refocus on what's right in front of me. So trying to stay in the present moment and remind myself like that's all that matters. Just tune everything else out as much as possible and like focus on I only have to complete what's right in front of me. So that client or that invoice or whatever it is. But I agree with you that taking breaks is really, really, really critical. Um, and then I think getting outside, like you mentioned, exercise. Like I think that's been one of the main lessons from this whole era for me. Like at the beginning of the pandemic, I was working within an agency and I was working from home and it was kind of crazy too. And just getting outside and like taking a breath of air or like getting your feet on the ground, noticing the weather, noticing there is a sky out there. Like there are natural elements because we're so glued to screens all the time. It's almost like you can forget that you're part of the natural world. So for me, that taking that time doing that for a few minutes, when I come back inside, I'm like way more apt to focus.
Mhm.
So
Mhm. All right. So, which
I,
is your favorite holiday and why?
I don't know. Is that really a fair question? I mean, I love them all so much. Um, my mom, who is no longer with us, she loved holidays. So I grew up with that being like a huge, I mean, birthdays, she went all out. It didn't matter what else was going on, she made holidays. She found a way to make it amazing. So I have like really positive associations with all those little holidays. Maybe not like St. Patrick's Day. I don't know. We didn't really celebrate that. But otherwise, I really love them all. Definitely Halloween, definitely Christmas, definitely birthdays, like anything where the inner child kind of comes out and you can just get really excited about the visuals, the colors, the treats, like the novelty of it. So I'm big on all of those.
Yes, I'm so here for it. I do enjoy the winter season holidays, but they are not my favorite because I really do resent the winter a little bit. I don't have a problem with being wet and I don't have a problem with being cold, but I do have a problem with being wet and cold at the same time. And so the winter really doesn't do it that much for me. So the summertime holidays really do uh, get at me. So I am a big fan of the summer solstice.
Mm,
I'm a big fan of May
mhm.
Day and Beltane. I'm a big fan of the 4th of July. The holidays where I can be out and about in the sunshine.
Yeah.
A lot of the times I'm around people
Mhm.
who are smiling and have great energy.
Right.
I consider myself a solar baby. Technically, I was born in the summertime. Um, and so I do really vibe with the solar energy and I do feel very
Mm.
empowered during those months. So I do like from May 1st all the way until the autumn dawns on us in September 22nd. That those are my holidays. I love them all.
Mm. Yeah, and you get the vitamin D mixed in with all the celebration. Get those serotonin levels up.
Full fact, full fact.
I think that, on a less like celebratory happy note, like I really think that that's part of why people struggle around the holidays. There's this expectation that it's going to be like fantastic, and there are all these childhood associations, but like most of us, at least in the Northeast, we're low on vitamin D. Like we're like it's like an epidemic of seasonal affective disorder. So it's like, why am I not feeling happy right now? Like
Yeah.
there's no sunshine,
Yeah.
or if there is out in it, it's too cold.
Yeah. And when it comes to the seasonal affective, like noticing the warning signs and how subtle they can be is
Yeah.
super important. Noticing, all right, I don't feel happy. Absolutely. Great, great warning sign. Noticing that you don't necessarily want to do anything to make yourself feel happy also is like a little subtle warning sign that you could like glance over. Like in the midst of, worrying about
Mhm.
how come you're not feeling happy, not contemplating why you don't want to do anything that you love or enjoy can creep in. Your appetite going way, way down low or going way, way up high is also one of those things.
Yes,
Just
appetite, sleep changes. And I don't know about you, but you hear the rumblings of it like earlier in the winter. And then like for me, I've noticed like February, March, you get people calling like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, I think I'm really depressed. Like, I think I'm clinically depressed. I don't know, I've gone way backward. And it's like, it's cumulative.
mhm.
So yeah, you're right. Like noticing those signs earlier on. Um, I've had people where they're prescribed an antidepressant for just like 4 or 5 months out of the year.
Yeah.
Um,
If it
I
works,
one of
that's
the,
a choice.
you know, I'm,
I'm here
and
for it.
I'm sure you and I are the same in that always send people to their primary care first to be like, get your blood work done. Like we could do all
Mhm.
kinds of counseling and talk about all these things, but like make sure that it's not like a vitamin deficiency or like,
Mhm.
iron and vitamin D. I've had clients where they get their D supplement, like they find out they were really low. And when they get their D, they're like, I feel like I'm back, like I'm a different person. So if we just did all of that, we could take their money and keep doing counseling, but like rule out the physical stuff, send them to their doctor first.
Mhm. Mega
Yes.
important. Do you have a primary care provider? When's the last time you saw them?
Yep. That's gotta be happen early on. Um, I don't know where you got this question. This one is really funny. um, I was reading, these questions. What is one article of clothing that if someone basically wore on a date, you would walk out?
Yeah.
That's that's a wild question. That one I really have to think about.
It is wild. So for me, it's not about a specific article of clothing, right? You can wear a jean jacket or like a Canadian tuxedo or whatever. But if there's any kind of hate symbolism on there, that's the
Mm,
one for me. If your self-expression
yeah,
is expressing hate, then I'm deuces.
yeah. That's like an easy red flag, right? Like someone just like walks in waving their little red flag. That's easy.
And it's really
Like,
any hate
don't
speech.
need
Like
to
it
invest
doesn't
more time here.
right, like it doesn't even have to be like specific to like me or any identity that I rock. But like if I can recognize that you hate some identity somewhere by what you're wearing,
Yeah.
it's a dub, it's a cap.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. For me, it would be probably like the little Bluetooth thing. Like, I think it's really interesting because first time you're getting to know someone, the whole point is connection, and people will be on their phones. Like, so I don't know. It's not an article of clothing, I guess, but if someone's like plugged in and can't unplug for like one conversation, to me, I don't know. I don't know if I'd walk out, but I probably would want that check to come pretty quickly. Like, why am I here? Why am I here? You could just use your phone at home.
Yeah, you could have got my
And
attention
that's
through that little Bluetooth like device. Didn't have to leave the house for that.
right. Like, you don't need a live human being. And that is far too common. Far, far too common.
Also, speaking of dating, it really seems like a bunch of folks out here in the dating world are struggling like a little bit with what it means to be dating right now or looking for a partner or trying to find like that
Mm.
romance. So like random question, what are your thoughts on that?
I have a lot of thoughts. I think the internal nature of a lot of the pandemic, obviously you saw a lot of conflict, like increases in domestic violence, intimate partner violence, and sometimes more bonding. And on the flip side, sometimes people who were cohabitating and they're like, wow, we really got to spend that time together and like deepen our connection. But then things have opened up. And so I think it's getting complicated. I have a friend in the legal field who mentioned like things are popping, like more infidelity, like more divorces. So now, our neurobiology got all wired for staying at home and hanging out and connecting, or staying home and abusing each other. And now we're out again, right? Like clubs, bars, restaurants, dating apps, like everything's like buzzing. And so we have to suddenly rewire for connection and also practice setting boundaries. And like, I think a lot of people are out of practice. If you're inside or you're internal or just your contact, even if we were out working in the world, our contact was more limited. You can't go near people, can't chit chat, right? And suddenly it's time to connect and you can do whatever you want. I think the boundaries are really off. Like I think a lot of people are crossing boundaries, more type behavior or just over pursuing. And people are also just, in a very understandable way, lonely. I think they're craving connection, even starving for connection. So now it's like there's a level of like desperation or intensity that's not always healthy. And so we have to kind of mitigate that by like looking at our own stuff and figuring out, what's going on. How has this pandemic affected me? What is the trauma that I have culturally experienced, if not personal, like culturally during the past couple of years? How is that going to play into how I connect with people? We need to be cautious with it. So I think, yeah, great question. I think that's being reflected in our stuff,
Yeah.
dating stuff.
And when it comes to the pandemic and dating and the way that it's kind of forced us to start to redesign our lives, I've said from the get, and I'm very proud that I've said this from the start, the pandemic, and it's starting to be personified now, the pandemic, the coronavirus,
Yeah,
all of that. It's starting to
right.
take on the little thought form kind of mentality. Um,
Mm,
but
yeah, it has
the
its own identity.
but the pandemic forced us to push almost everything out of our lives, like out of our physical lives. You can't come to our house We're not going to our jobs. Grocery shopping was put on a halt, and things were delivered on our porches. We had to literally just let go of a bunch of things. And what that means, or what that meant, was we got to push away and avoid some of the reckonings with some of the things that were hurting us and paining us relationship wise, as well as the things that we had joy with. And then we started back towards opening back up and reintegrating. And we're all forced to reckon with, well, since so many things were taken out of our lives that were out of my control, what do I want to let back in? What do I want to let back in on purpose? This means now we get to look at our own patterns of behavior, the things that we think and we believe, and some of the things that we participate in that perpetuate some of the pain and suffering that we were in before we got this slate wiped away clean.
Yes, it's still there.
And so my question to people who are seeking partners, seeking romance, wants to date, wants to redesign how you're connecting with people, and especially from a standpoint that's decolonized, depathologized, and destigmatized. My questions are, what does it take for someone to enter your life, for you to know them? What does it take to move closer to you to a point that maybe you want to see them in groups or in public places? And what does it take for someone to get closer to you still, to where you're comfortable enough being on an individual setting, just you and this person, or you and these people that you are, interested in? How do you recognize when they respect your boundaries? How do you recognize when they disrespect your boundaries? Are you feeling joy around them when the moments are meant to be joyous? Are you feeling any other things that are appropriate when those times are present? Are you able to be authentic? Do you feel judged or put down too much? Are you struggling to find a place or a voice? Are you already walking on eggshells? If you don't want to continue participating in these things, the pandemic was a wonderful ally to get all of that out of your life, all of that out of your way. Now you got to redesign what you want it to be, and that's the other gift.
Those are fantastic questions. Like, I want to write them all down. I mean, yes, boundaries, like that seems like the kind of, you mentioned that as well. And like, we both had kind of different takes on what we're seeing, or similar takes, but like a different description of what we're seeing. But that core theme is like, it's almost like redefining boundaries. Like, what are my boundaries now? What were they before? And, what is still there latent that I haven't dealt with? And then how do I need to update my boundaries? And all of those questions are questions that we don't ask ourselves in dating. I think it's like people kind of wing it. And I think being intentional, that's so important. When I work with people who are dating, one of the main things that I, kind of assignments is like, identify your non-negotiables. Like, you probably have a long list of things that you prefer, things that you would like, ideally in a perfect world, but you probably have a really short list of deal breakers. And it's really important, I think, to identify them and own them, because if we don't know what they are, then it's like, you get several months in, it's like, what is happening? Well, if you had identified your real non-negotiables early on, you never would have gotten that far. But again, like you're saying, asking those questions, holding yourself accountable. It's so easy about, it's so awful out there. People are awful. It's so tough. You can't find someone. Well, you can also look at, what are you bringing to the table? Like, how are you operating? So that stuff is fun. I mean, we get a lot of stuff around violations and trauma in relationships for sure, but also it can be really fun, I think, like, exploring boundaries, figuring out who you are, figuring out, like you said, what do you want? And how do you know that you're moving toward it? Really interesting stuff.
Yeah. All right, so let's see. Next question. if you won the
I
lottery,
want a list of those questions.
all right, all
I want
right,
a list of those questions.
will do. All right, so the next question though is if you won the lottery, what's the first thing you would buy?
Oh goodness. I would buy a house with a little house with excess land, um, and create like a wellness kind of retreat space.
Yeah,
Number one.
that sounds good. That sounds good. I'd probably buy freedom.
Mhm.
So the debts would be paid for me and my peoples, and then whatever is left would be invested in probably a similar way. I would
Yeah.
definitely like to use like a lot of money and set up companies for nieces, nephews, cousins, all that
Mhm.
jazz, so they can
Yeah.
use their talents and whatnot in ways that
Mm.
help them be successful, and like they won't have to come out with any investment on their own. I would be able to like help support them with that. So I would buy freedom for my family.
Mm. Yes. Yeah, so crazy student loan debt. I mean, I didn't think of that because I forget that it's something that will ever end, like student loan debt. So crazy. You get punished for getting an education. You
Mhm.
get punished. Um, yes, that makes sense. That makes sense. And those educational funds and things, to have that education without having to be punished for it for years and years.
Mhm. That part
Hmm.
super important.
That's a fun one to think about.
All right, so I think it's your turn to ask the next question.
We've got just a couple more, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I like this one. If you were left on a deserted island with either your worst enemy or no one, which would you choose and why?
Yeah, so this one is really easy for me. What do you think?
Oh, leave me alone.
Definitely put me with my enemy. Like we'll duke it out for a couple of days. We'll find a way to reconcile a couple of days after that, and then a couple of days after that, we'll be off that fucking island. That's just how
Yeah,
it's gonna go. That's just it.
I I agree. I think most people would want to like be left alone, but hey, out of necessity, you would have to kind of either kill each other or work together to get it out. Um, I don't know. I think I would choose that just because it would be interesting.
Yeah. Also, like my
So
worst enemy, like if I'm thinking of the right person, like we're probably gonna like draw on like the sand and like I don't know, like throw dirt on each other or whatever. Like nothing awful is going to happen. I feel completely comfortable. If I am thinking of the
yeah,
right person as my worst enemy, I'm completely comfortable being on a deserted island with them.
probably motivate each other. Like, I don't know. That's the thing too. Anger is like fuel. Like if somebody's like irritating you, like I feel like you would be like probably be okay. But if you're just alone, you'd probably be depressed and like starve to death.
That part.
You need something to like light that fire and get you
Yeah.
moving.
And then I can't remember off
Um,
the top of my head, but there's a certain amount of time where if you go without like talking to another human being or having that stimulation, like your brain will start to create auditory and visual hallucinations for you to like start to communicate and
yeah.
interact with. Like you'll start to walk around with your very own Wilson, like, oh my goodness, Wilson. Like, yeah.
Yes. What I learned working in in the prison, I had like an older, seasoned, wonderful mentor briefly who was like, I'll explain these hallucinations to you. Like, we evolved to have information coming in. If you take all the information away and isolate someone and lock them up, guess what? Like, the brain is going to create some stuff. And yeah, I think you'd want someone there.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we both went to the same graduate school. So I'm interested in what our answers will be to this next question. But what is one interesting fact about your high school or college?
So Yes, we have similar educational backgrounds here. What is the most interesting fact in terms of grad school? Could there be a most interesting fact? Like, I feel like Goddard was one of the most interesting places. I think it's interesting that there's a garden house on the edge of like a courtyard and beautiful old historic stone garden, and that one of the beams in the garden house was from the building that the Salem witch trials were in. I think that's like an interesting fact. Spent a lot of years there before I heard that story, but there are so many.
Yeah. So mine is also about Goddard, and one of the interesting facts that I like to drop is that William H. Macy went there.
He did. Yes. And like it was formative. It was like a wildly important experience, and he did tons of like exploration in terms of acting and stuff. Allen Ginsberg and like all kinds of people were hanging out in that hay barn. Like a little cultural, I don't know, petri dish in the 70s or whatever.
Yes. All right, last question on the list. Go for it.
Okay. Would you rather be able to run 100 miles per hour or fly at 10 miles an hour?
Run.
I mean, right? I think the flying thing, like the novelty of that would be phenomenal, but I don't know. I feel like you could just do that in your dreams. Like running 100 miles an hour, that would be useful. That would be very useful. I'm safer.
Yeah,
I'm safer.
I want to be able to. Fact. So I want to be able to fly faster than I can walk or get on like a child's scooter.
It would almost be frustrating. Like you can fly, but only 10 miles an hour. Like, that game where you make a wish and then you have to like put a limit on it or something, a clause.
Yeah.
It's like fly, but you can't actually, that's really slow.
So you can fly as high as you want to, but as far as the going, 10 miles an hour, that's a dub. That is a dub. I'm not getting anywhere on time.
No, that's not real freedom.
So if I can run for 100 miles an hour, I can dip anywhere in about 5 minutes.
And that's the whole reason that flying dreams are like fun, is that there's, we can fly fast. So yeah, useful. You can get to where you need to go. Your car breaks down, you're fine. You're not going to be late. And in terms of predators or attackers, that is useful. Yeah. I'll take the 100 miles an hour.
Yeah. So are there any
fun question?
Yeah, that was a fun one. I
have one more.
Okay, go for it.
So my one more is, if you had to choose an alternative career, like something happened where they were not in terms of your license, but just, okay, you have to do something new. What would you do instead if you were not a therapist? What would you do?
I would probably default to one of my other hobbies or passions, which would be journalism. So I would probably try to get back into writing for the newspaper, or I'd try to get on TV and interview people journalism style.
No, you would be fabulous at that. I could see it. It's funny that you say that, because that, if I had to answer that question, it would be similar. I'd probably do, it would be writing based. Yeah. Interesting. I wonder how many clinicians or therapists also are like writers. We could probably look that up somewhere. I don't know. Yeah. But I also would not mind doing like hobby farming. Like if I could do farming, I know that I'd be okay. I have a kid who's animal obsessed, and it's really gotten me more connected with like just gardening, like our bunny, and just the rhythms of all of that. I think that could be maybe like a little specialty hobby farm, like a bunny farm or an herb farm, like growing large amounts of herbs and drying them and stuff. That sounds really pleasant. Um, yeah, I always like to ask, what would you do if you had to put a different hat on?
Yeah, thank you. I think I might also be okay with getting cross-trained as a barber.
Hmm. Really? A little creative element.
Hmm.
Hmm. I had a mentor once who said that you should change careers every 10 years.
Oh,
Too.
oh.
And just to learn, just do something different.
So if that's true, then I'm coming up on a change like soon.
Ooh,
I don't know if I want that.
time to get out. For me, I enjoy just like having different hands in different things. I don't think I could ever just do one thing. Like, I feel like mental health will always be central, but we're multifaceted people. Gonna have
Yes,
other things,
very,
variety.
very.
Well, this was fun, and it's awesome to talk not about work and just have a fun conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to encourage anyone who checks this out, if you've got questions for us that you want to ask us to get to know us, I will say you can ask them, but this is the internet and I know how y'all roll. So we reserve the right to answer any question or not answer any question y'all may ask. But go ahead and give us a try and see what we come up with. I'm here for it. What you think, Courtney?
Yeah, agreed. I think, clinicians, therapists, people in mental health are human beings too. And then also we have certain boundaries. So some questions may not be asked, but we also are warm human beings and love community and love to hear from people. And that's why we wanted to come on. So
Absolutely. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and shut it down for this evening. Courtney, was great connecting with you again, and I look forward
you
to speaking
too.
to you soon. Uh, and yeah, let's
And
do.
hit us up if you would like to yes, if you would like some information, about counseling or want to pass that information along to other people.
Yes,
I'm booking people.
yes, yes. So Courtney is booking people right now. I've got room for like 2 or 3 more people realistically that I can work with. At a weekly, and then I can take 6 people that want to do like every other week or once a month. So like that's where
Mhm.
I'm at on that. But yes, Courtney, absolutely booking. We take Aetna, Optum, United Healthcare. Check out the website for like the other ones. But we do take a bunch of those. And then we do also have the advocate program. So if you want to utilize some of your out of network provider resources or figure out how that works, that's also an option. So check that out too. If you want to get some healing in, you want some insight, you want to design a future for yourself that's based on your values, come on, give us a shot.
It's so nice to work with you. I'm so glad that we've reunited and this is happening. So
All right, take it easy. Have a great night.
awesome.